I hope you learn to prioritize the people who bring you peace. The people who mirror the same length of love as you give others. The people who stand by your side, not in every moment, but rather in the moments that matter the most. The people who have the capacity to understand the very depths of your soul. I hope you learn to prioritize the people who choose you. And that was posted on Instagram by Lisa Messenger. Hey everybody, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Toy Talks podcast. If you are new here, welcome. My name is Toya Washington. I am the founder, the creator of the Toy Talks podcast and platform, and we teach, guide and advise Black women how to navigate the world of work safely and in turn highlight the path of success. I choose Black women first because I am a Black woman and the world of work is treacherous. But it's a very different experience for us as Black women. It's very nuanced. I choose Black women first, now, today, and always. And then all women, and then everyone else. And this podcast and the platform is not just for people in the corporate world, it's for people in the working world. As long as you are working, the podcast and the platform is talking to you. And I feel like I have to caveat that when I open a podcast episode all the time, just so that we are clear. And also I've noticed that we're growing, the platform is growing, and I feel very blessed to be in a position to be able to say that. There's so many other podcasts you could be listening to, but I think it's a reflection of the fact that we have created a safe space here for us to talk and learn and grow and teach and guide. And I think also as well there is an honesty here, and I bring forth my own experiences and teach you the blueprint to success. You get to define what success means to you. I know what success means to me, and it's more than just money. It's understanding a strategy to navigate the world of work. It's peace of mind. Yes, it's finances and making as much money as possible, but understanding how to cope in a world that is just sometimes just really confusing, especially as a Black woman, where we're told that we're not enough, we're not good enough, we're gaslit, made to feel invisible. And then when we are seen, made to feel like there's so many hurdles that we have to climb and cross more than our white counterparts or our non-Black counterparts. So I definitely know the purpose of the podcast is a continuing progression in this journey called life. And I'm willing to be on this journey if you're willing to rock with me. So you know the opening quote, and it talks about, you know, people who mirror the same length of love, and you know, people who stand by your side, not in every moment, but rather the moments that matter, and understand the very depth of your soul and learn to prioritize people who choose you. I think it's so interesting, that opening, because Kay and I were having a discussion, and you know, I had a very, very warped understanding of what family means, because I'm from a generation that's defined by culture. You know, I'm from that last generation before the new age generation of social media. I'm from that generation. And there are so many people in my generation who have broken free and found our voice. And it's so interesting that I lean more towards the podcast, because if we're talking about finding our voices, that's what podcasting is. It's using your voice to tell the story. And I definitely feel like that the podcast has been as cathartic for me as it has been learning for you all. And, you know, it took a long time for me to understand my purpose, not because I didn't have one, but when you're in a family whereby culture and duty dominate who you are, and you're not taught to have a voice of expressing emotion, and you're made to feel as though your emotions are invalid, it's very difficult to know then how to actually really express yourself. I'll give you an example. I remember when I first started therapy, and my therapist asked me how I was, and I was like, yeah, I'm fine. It's been a bit of a difficult day today. Haven't really been looking forward to this therapy session, but I'm here. And she said to me, I asked how you are and how you're doing. You're not answering the question. And I was like, what do you mean? She goes, you're not going to the depth of your soul and answering the question honestly, either because you're not honest with how you feel, or you just don't know how. It was probably one of the most profound conversations I've ever had with a therapist, because up until that point, I thought I was a very good communicator. I thought I, answered the question very truthfully, until I realised I was never really taught to answer that question truthfully. I was never really taught that my emotions were valid enough that anybody would want to know how I feel, you know? And I think making the choice to go to therapy has given me an understanding and provided me with the tools to be able to know how to function adequately in society and understand me and who I am. I think identity is so important, especially as a black woman in this society, because society wants to identify you and give you an identity that makes them feel comfortable. But that's not who you are. It's not about making other people feel comfortable. It's about knowing who you are and being able to stand in your identity and feel comfortable. I'm 38 years old and I'm sitting here telling you that when I look back in the mirror, I'm really happy with the reflection I see. I see sadness and pain in my eyes, but also behind that, I see triumph and happiness, and I see liberation and freedom. There is this TikToker, and I'm actually on my TikTok now, and her name is Choma. I really want to find her TikTok handle, but I can't find it right now. But long story short, she wanted to open an African, like a food store. So they're selling like African foods and stuff, but online. And it's a passion of hers. From what I understand, she's a qualified lawyer. And she just has a passion for all things Nigerian. She's Igbo, and she just wanted to open this online. There was a demand for it from it, but more importantly, it makes her happy and it makes her money, and it's something that she's passionate about. Long story short, she's shared her journey, and part of her journey is her mum has basically, you know, I don't know if you call excommunicated, I don't know what you want to call it, but washed her hands of Choma because she thinks Choma has wasted her life. And Choma's basically sharing her journey and everything. And what I found so interesting is Choma's from my generation. And to hear her story and how her mum has literally recruited family members, friends to abuse Choma verbally, abuse her on the phone, to try and get her page taken down, ridicule her new business. And I remember just hearing her story and just shaking my head, because for me I was like, when are our families going to understand that their role is to guide, raise, and to be a caretaker? It's not to tear down and try to destroy the essence of who you are as a person. And it felt familiar. You know, her story felt familiar. And now that I'm a mother myself, I'm just so disgusted that would even be something. And the way in which culturally parents and family members, elder family members, are made to seem, where they're untouchable, invincible, whereby respect is more important than mental health. It's wild to me. And now that I'm a parent, and I've only been a parent for 10 weeks, I am entry level. But already I know that in order to break generational curses, it starts with actually understanding that my job is not to control my child. Like, I'm not here to make her into anything. I'm here to guide her, support her, love her, educate her, pour into her. And if there are behaviours that are displayed that are not correct, then my role is to use the ability as a parent, use and have this understanding of her personality enough to curb that behaviour or to educate her to behave better. I will always say to anybody, your mental health it's the highest currency you'll ever have in your life. If somebody is compromising your mental health, you need to get away. Now, getting away doesn't necessarily have to be permanently, but until you can find a balance in your mental health, you can't have people around you who compromise your mental health. And in Choma's case, I think that's where she's at. She's gone ahead and opened her business, and I'm definitely going to be ordering from her business just to show that support. I can't imagine how it must feel to know that something that you're passionate about, after going through education And I know how it goes, you know, you do things to make your family happy, and then when you now decide to choose yourself, it becomes a problem. Like going through all of that and now being in a position whereby she's now an entrepreneur, and, you know, she's got a fallback plan, she's got her career if it doesn't work out. But isn't a parent's job also to support? And if, you know, if she was going into a field that made no sense, fine. You know, have the conversation, but to tear somebody down and mentally try to break them, I personally will never understand why that will never be dangerous to people in older generations in our culture. Do you understand? Like, playing with someone's mental health is just crazy to me. But I digress. I just, you know, just remembered that, so I wanted to discuss it. Before we go into the meat and potatoes of this episode, I saw something online and I thought, do you know what, I want to talk about this quickly. So we all know what happened to Jordan Woods and, you know, her interaction with Tristan Thompson, the whole thing with the Kardashian family. For those of you who didn't know, Jordan Woods was best friends with Kylie Jenner, and apparently Jordan kissed Tristan, who was the boyfriend and the father of Khloe's firstborn. And it was just unbelievable how the Kardashian force came for Jordan. Jordan was young. Jordan was in her early 20s at the time. And how they were like vultures. You know, like lions when they get their prey and they have all the blood coming out of their face. You know, they literally wanted blood. And Jordan's mental health was all over the place. You could see it. She didn't have the whole Kardashian media machine that the Kardashians had, and Khloe was nasty. But Khloe to me represented the woman who refuses to hold a man accountable when he owes you more loyalty than the woman he's cheating on you with. Khloe represents to me insecurity and somebody who's a glutton for punishment. You lose them how you gain them, sis. Like, we all know how she got with Tristan, and the woman he was with was pregnant, and Khloe didn't care. Do you understand? So now you've got this 20-something-year-old, and okay, fine, you know, what Jordan did wasn't right. But to accuse a young 20-year-old of destroying your family when the only person who was invested in your family, i.e. Tristan, is welcome into the fold like nothing happened. Luckily for Jordan Woods, she had the infrastructure around her, and I call them the infrastructure because it's the Smiths. Jada Pinkett Smith and Will Smith and his family had a long-standing relationship with Jordan and her family, and gave her an opportunity to tell her side of the story on the Red Table Talks. And actually, it was probably the most profound and transformative discussion that was had, because Black women really stood up for Jordan in a way that I hadn't seen in a really long time, and really defended her, because the culture vultures of the Kardashian-Jenner machine, in my opinion, is built of bullies, in my opinion. And I think whilst Jordan wasn't in the right, she was equally as wrong as Tristan, but she was treated worse. So you can fast forward how many years now. Khloe's gone on to have another child by surrogacy with Tristan Thompson. He's cheated on her multiple times, you know, since then, allegedly. But there has been a child that has been born while Khloe was with Tristan and she was going through her surrogacy journey, which is wild to me. Jordan, ever since she got rid of, and I say got rid of, but walked away from the Kardashian-Jenner clan, her life has transformed. She's in a relationship with someone who clearly loves her, looks after her. Her career has gone from strength to strength. And actually, you forget about her association with the Kardashians. You forget that Jordan and Kylie were best friends, because we've now seen Jordan have her own identity and step into her womanhood and her Black womanhood, because I wasn't sure if she was aware she was a Black woman. I wasn't, because, you know, sometimes you could just get, like with Jordan, I always felt like she had no identity and she kind of morphed into the Kardashians. But the strength of being a Black woman, I didn't feel that she understood the essence of that. And it could be because the Kardashians are culture vultures and literally seeped all of that from her and drained her of her strength. I don't know. So Jordan's literally like revamped her life. She's been under construction, but what we have seen is the beauty that the butterfly has become. And recently, as yesterday, there was a picture that was published of Jordan and Kylie going to dinner together, and it's the first time, you know, they've been seen in public since all this furore happened with the whole Tristan Thompson and Khloe Kardashian. So it's been many years. Now, maybe they've had conversations behind closed doors, we don't know. What we do know is Kylie Jenner did not jump to Jordan's defense. Fair enough, Khloe's her half-sister, but still, she was left to the wolves, and Jordan rose and soared like an eagle. And when I saw the picture, I thought, wow, people really do not know how to protect their blessings. And I don't think Jordan knows how to protect her blessings. And it's sad. And I think I left a comment on one of the blog sites, and I kind of said just that. You know, sometimes people come into your life to teach you a lesson. And sometimes you're going to face situations where you're going to be tested about whether you've learnt that lesson or not. Some people need to be removed from your life so the blessings can come in. When the blessings start coming in, you better notice the correlation between that door closing with that person and the blessings flowing in. Some people are blessing blockers. And I feel like some people don't understand on a spiritual level blessing blockers. Some people want you to be happy, just not happier than them. Blessing blockers. Some people enjoy when you are struggling. Blessing blockers. Some people do not know how to support you when you are struggling, but add to your struggle by making you feel that you're not good enough. Blessing blockers. Some people do not know how to be a friend to you when you are down. They're only there for the ups. Blessing blockers. Kylie Jenner, to me, is a blessing blocker. No blessings were flowing when her and Jordan were friends. In fact, there was codependency. It came across a very unhealthy relationship when we were watching that, Keeping Up with the Kardashians. It didn't seem very healthy. And Jordan didn't seem happy in herself. You know, she now takes pride in her appearance, herself, her business. And you can see that there's been a freedom that she's now enjoying. Why is she going back to those people? I will never understand it. But I think there's a lesson there to be learned from all of us. Forgiveness doesn't mean readmission. There was a podcast episode where I had the opening quote, and it spoke about that. Forgiveness doesn't have to mean readmission. Forgiveness can also mean I hold no malice or grudge against you, and I'm happy for us to be cordial. If there is a readmission, it's going to take a long time. But if there is no readmission, things are just good as they are. Let's be civil. I don't know what it is about the need as human beings for us to readmit someone back in our lives just to prove that we've forgiven them. The only person you have to prove anything to is yourself. But the most important proof is whether you've learnt your lesson from a situation. I've always said that I struggle with forgiveness, and I'm going to sit here and say to you, I have struggled with forgiveness because it's taken me a long time to learn to forgive myself for decisions I should never have made about people, about situations, about how I allow people in my life. There's something about reaching the crevices of hell and really facing death through childbirth that will have you looking at life very differently. For me, I just see people for who they are. And I know that I get to choose who I have in my life and who I don't. And if I don't have you in my life, you're not my enemy. I just do not want you in my life. It's actually that simple. You cannot be living rent-free in my head because, as far as I'm concerned, those who are close to me or those who are in my life, I've chosen for them to be in my life and they've chosen for me to be in their life. But anybody who is not in my life, i.e. there's been a situation where I've had to walk away from the friendship or there is just no friendship anymore, I've had to learn to forgive myself for making poor choices. Because it's all well and good and easy for me to sit here and tell you, oh, it's because of this and this person did this. And whilst all of those things could be true, I still made choices that led to certain situations. And taking responsibility for that has always been very difficult for me, because I have always prided myself on being a good judge of character. And whilst I may or may not have been a good judge of character, it's more about forgiving myself for making decisions that maybe didn't serve me very well. So when I say I have a problem with forgiveness, I think what I'm really saying is I've had a problem with forgiveness, and had a problem with forgiving myself to understand and know how to forgive others who have offended or upset me. So yeah, I kind of wanted to share that, and hopefully there is a lesson there. Hopefully there's something we can all learn from that situation, and hopefully we should all watch this space and see, you know, kind of how that whole Jordan, Kylie Jenner and Kardashian situation evolves. But sometimes when certain things happen, we have to take the lessons for ourselves and be better. So you all will remember, I believe it was last year, I did a series called Financial Freedom and Financial Literacy, and just understanding financial literacy and what that means to us. And it starts off by really understanding your relationship with money and actually being able to work on unhealthy relationships with money. I think coming from a background where I'm not from any money has meant that I had a really poor relationship with money. In fact, I'll go as far as to say I didn't understand the value of money because I disrespected it so much. I think I've done so much work over the years to have the credit score that I have. I've done so much work over the years to be able to have a better relationship with money and have savings that I can be proud of. I have a better relationship with money and respect what money can do, and how money is also used as a weapon to control, and how I've allowed myself to disrespect money so much and then allow money to be used as a weapon against me. Being able to have a healthy relationship with money has meant that I've been able to forecast and financially plan. It's also meant that I can sit here and tell you that I'm debt free. I can also sit here and tell you my student loans are all paid off. And that wouldn't have taken place or happened if I hadn't understood and kind of opened my mind to financial literacy, but also work on the things that made me financially illiterate. So I will, in the show notes to this episode, I will put the link in and reference the episode that I think you need to listen to in conjunction with this episode. Now, I want to caveat by saying that this episode is not sponsored. However, I thought it was really important that I talk about a particular bank. And I'm going to talk about Chase Bank. And it has primarily been a US-based bank. But before I get into that chat, what I want to say is it's really interesting how the UK are facing massive closures of retail banks. And part of it is because there's been a rise of online banking. So a lot of people are, not going into branches as much. So we're doing a lot more online banking. And because of that, the popularity of online banking has grown. So there are certain banks who have really invested in the IT digital infrastructure for online banking and have made banking easier from a digital perspective. Halifax is one bank. They've really invested in the online banking system. It's really, really good, even down to the fact that they will project how much you're going to spend for that month, and they will tell you almost like a forecast of what you're due to spend that much based on your previous behaviours. It's brilliant. Halifax has really done really well with that. I'd say NatWest Bank. I bank primarily with NatWest, and I've not been really comfortable with that because I don't like the idea of a bank being a single point of failure. I don't think their customer service is very good. I think their online banking infrastructure isn't great, especially when you compare it to someone like Halifax. And I think their customer service isn't good either. I think NatWest needs to invest more on the digital side, especially with the growing demand for online banking. I think also as well, the reason why a lot of retail banks are closing is also the cost of running these branches is expensive. If you think about it, they have to also lease the building, then you're paying staff in that building, and all the equipment in there is IT equipment, so the cash points and everything, and someone has to man that, someone has to empty it. So there is a lot of money that's spent on the retail side of banking in terms of buildings. So what we're seeing now is a lot of banks basically closing their retail business, namely Barclays, NatWest, Lloyds as well. I was once with Lloyds Bank, and in total, it's been said and reported that 460 retail banks are facing closure within the next year. And there's now a real push for people to go online, have their online banking, or go to other locations that are further away from them to access financial services. We're in a cost of living crisis, and there is no way I can talk about, anything on this podcast without speaking about finances as well. Because yes, we talk about the world of work, but we're not charities. We're not working for free. Like, we're working to make money. We're working to climb that career ladder. We're working so that we can expand our earning potential. That's why we're working. We're working to live and survive. I don't want to really live like that. I don't want to work to survive. I want to, work so that I can create a better future for myself. That's for me. I'm now thinking about retirement. There's nothing like having a child that will make you and force you to think about the future. If I hadn't, done the work on my financial literacy and understanding, I think I'd find it really hard to have a child and be able to look after that child financially, because children are expensive. Are we talking about nursery fees that are often the same or more than the cost of a mortgage? Are we talking about feeding and clothing? Children cost money. And also as well, like for me, what's really important is activities. My child is 10 weeks old, but there are certain play groups and mother and baby classes that have to be paid for. And whilst I live outside, London, and there's some community-based things, the things that I feel like are really going to add additional value are the ones that are going to be paid for. So survival skills and swimming, sensory classes. There's certain things I've had to pay for, and they cost money. And this is now at 10 weeks old, before my child has developed a taste for certain things, i.e. clothes. And, now I can get away with kind of, going into Primark and spending £80 and having a complete winter wardrobe, or, shopping in the Zara and River Island and H&M sale. But when your child is even at this age, they still cost a lot of money. And I feel like some people forget, when we're thinking about the future, unless you work on your relationship with money and create financial infrastructures around you, you're never going to actually be able to plan for bigger things, or you're never going to be able to feel comfortable, like, for example, having a child and being able to look after that child financially. So with all the closures and the retail closures of banks and things like that, I think for me, what has been important for me is my, future planning, future proofing. Because I'm a contractor, I have an accountant. I have a really, really good accountant, and I talk a little bit about, choosing an accountant and things like that on the freelance, interim and consulting masterclass. But my accountant helps me with forward planning, helps me with financial planning, and also investments. So if I want to invest in something, whilst they don't give me investment advice, they'll ask, as part of planning financially, it will be, can I afford it? How am I going to be able to continue to afford it? Do you understand? Anything to do with, budgeting and having that financial infrastructure around me, my accountant is very imperative to that conversation. So I say all of this to say, I hate the idea of having one bank as a single point of failure. For me, that's NatWest. It doesn't make me feel good. I think that the banking offering of the UK is not great. I'm so sorry. I mean, fine, the interest rates and mortgages are rising. I personally don't know how first-time buyers are going to kind of get on that property ladder. It is crazy. I wanted to buy another investment property, but this is just not the time because of the interest rates at the moment. So when looking at my finances and planning and things like that, obviously I funded my own maternity, and I'm going to discuss that in more detail what I mean by funded, and how I've actually also allowed the government to pay me to be on maternity too, because I'm entitled. Yeah, we're going to get into all of that, because I feel like financial intelligence is like a best kept secret, and it's only given to people of a certain level. Whereas I feel like if you've come from some of our backgrounds, they don't invest the time to teach us about finances, and it's really sad, because what it means is that we're in the perpetual cycle of having a flawed relationship with money. And this is why I use my platform to just take away all the cobwebs and just say what it is or my experiences and give you the blueprint. So Chase Bank. Let's talk about Chase Bank. And you're probably thinking, Toya, why are you talking about Chase Bank? And it's because I've opened an account with them. Again, I'm going to caveat this episode by saying that this episode is not sponsored. But me, I'm here to share knowledge. So, bearing in mind the closures of the retail banks and things like that, and the fact that I personally don't feel like I get a good banking service. The only people that are really paying the price for the retail banking closures are elderly people who may be struggling with online banking. But it's made me really think about, what do I get out of my bank? Like, what do I get from them? How are they best serving me to continue to be financially literate? So Chase Bank basically arrived in the UK in autumn of 2021. It's one of the big fours in America, and it's one of the largest banks in the US. It has now developed its own UK infrastructure, which is separate from the US, and they are now an online bank. So how you basically set up your online bank is through your mobile with Chase. And I think what I love about it is how easy it was to set up. It's 24-hour, 7 days a week, UK-led customer support. You get 1% cash back on all debit card payments, and you have a savings rate of 3.8% variable. And it's calculated daily and paid monthly on your debit card or your debit account. For me personally, I think with the way society is going and kind of watching the level the government controls over people's banks, and the idea that they should just freeze banks when they like, it just makes me uncomfortable. I think the government, so if a bank went bust, you're covered up until I think it's 69,000, and then anything over 69,000 is going to be a battle to get if your bank goes bust. Now, what's the likelihood of your bank going bust? I don't know. In fact, if anyone told me that we would have 2 years of a lockdown, I wouldn't believe it. So nothing actually surprises me in this society. With the growing popularity of online banking, Chase Bank has come to the UK. They have a numberless debit card, free debit card use abroad without no charge, and they are wholly owned by JP Morgan. And I need to say that because I need to invest in JP Morgan. I need to see if I can get some stocks, because there's stocks and shares, honey. Because JP Morgan is huge. If you don't know who JP Morgan is, Google them. So they predominantly now in the UK have current accounts and savings accounts. And I would say to you that if you have a single point of failure bank, current banking, open a Chase Bank. And it's just a suggestion. I'm just sharing, because not only is it something that I have done, but I can definitely see the benefit in spreading my money and utilising the variable interest rates to save money. I think it's really important that we understand how money works in this country. I think that we're going to go to a digital banking age where we won't have any physical money and it will all be digital. And that in itself scares me. But as society is moving and things are growing, I believe it's our job to stay informed and keep abreast of how things are changing. I think another reason why I've kind of really paid attention to how I bank is because I also, I have a child, and I thought, right, I need to open an account for baby TK. And they offer junior ISAs account, and you can get them up until they're 16 or up until they're 18. But then I thought, no, I want a current account where I can put money in there and teach my child at a very early age financial literacy with the current account, and then have a savings account where me and Kay will effectively be saving all the money for our child in a savings account. And also as well, I wanted another account for my child, for our child, for nursery, so that it's almost like my child has its own banking identity. But that's not necessarily available here in the UK. It's actually really, really sad. So I've had to open like another account and then just change the name. Do you understand? So it'll be in my name, but you can actually name it something in your app, and it's not very progressive. Yeah, so I think that Chase Bank offers massive competition. I don't think that they need as much marketing, because everyone knows Chase Bank, but I think for the purposes of how the financial infrastructure is here in the UK, they're going to have to invest in marketing and the positives and the pros of banking with them. Obviously, you know, there are cons, i.e. there is no physical bank to go into that is a Chase Bank in the UK. But you've just heard me talk about, you know, some of the demise of some of the retail banks. So Chase Bank is actually being quite progressive and forward thinking when thinking about UK banking. And it really wants to dominate the industry here and be one of the big hitters. As it stands at the moment, you know, I remember at uni I was with HSBC, and when I was younger I was with Barclays, and I hated those banks. They seem quite corporate banks, if that makes sense, and I just really didn't like it. NatWest seems to be okay, but again, you know, I've shared with you that I just don't like their online offering. So Chase Bank, let's see what happens. But I thought I would share it here because there's no point me talking about financial literacy and then, you know, be informed about something and not come to the table and share it with you all. So go and do your research, because I always say to people, whatever anyone suggests, yourself to do your research. I've opened an account with Chase Bank. Chase Bank, if you listen to this episode, you need to come sponsor us. In fact, we need to know what else you're offering. It's actually a shame that they don't have a business banking, but maybe that's something they'll grow to. And for those of you who are interested, they are headquartered in Canary Wharf with a support team in Edinburgh. So if you need that 24/7 support, at least you know they are, you know, in the country. Yeah. But yeah, go ahead and do your research. I think, you know, as and when, you know, I am aware of certain things, I am going to do episodes and just share it, because knowledge is power. And, you know, we are still going to always talk about the world of work and how one is navigating. I've got so many episodes. There's so much stuff that has happened, even on maternity, that I have to share with you all. And it's just so interesting how the world of work doesn't change, but our approach to it has to, you know. And like I said, there's no way I can talk about the world of work without talking about money and finances and financial literacy and education. So that's what I've done in this episode. So go ahead, do the research. Hopefully you find this episode interesting. I'm going to draw this episode to a close, but before I do, I'm going to quickly share an upcoming episode with you. So I've been through so much in the last 10 weeks since giving birth. I had a very traumatic birth. I've always said I'd never share my birth story because it's loaded with too much trauma, but also because it's something I, you know, think is quite personal. I want to keep it to myself. What I will share is the learning lessons. When you have to mourn your old life, because you do, because your life is fundamentally going to change, I never knew how difficult it would be for me to mourn my old life, because, how can I say this? I was fighting for my life, and people in my old life, I needed them to be there for me, because I didn't think I was going to make it. I needed my mum and my siblings to be there for me, and that didn't happen. It really affected my mental health. I had to go to therapy. I have my last 2 sessions coming up. And I can sit here and tell you that my mental health was compromised. It's never been like that before, outside of my dad dying. I've been through a lot. I'm sitting here before you at the glory of the ancestors, to be honest. And in and amongst all of that, I was suffering from postpartum depression. I've had to share this with some of my close friends because I was fighting for my life. And the only people that knew were my mother-in-law and Kay. To be on the other, at the other end of it, the other side of it, or to come through it, has been very transformative. There's nothing like fighting for your life that will have you see people for who they are. And one thing I'm going to say is, blood ain't shit. The people who have been there for me, they're not related to me, not blood related. But I've been covered by so much love that has given me the fight. My birthing stroke was so traumatic. I was induced for 5 days and only 3 centimeters dilated. I caught an infection. My child is the strongest person I know. I thought I was strong. My child is strong. And in and amongst all of this, I was still interviewing. Talk about hyper independence. Talk about denial. Talk about whatever you want to talk about. I was trying to hold on to some remnants of my old life, some remnants of me. Because I was completely lost. And I was actually offered a job, by the way. This is so crazy. Even when I say this, it sounds very mad. But the reason I'm saying this, I'm not perfect. I'm not infallible. I'm not strong. You see this strong black woman narrative. I'm just me. And I feel so blessed to be able to sit here and actually share this and say this, because the episode that is coming up about kind of the interview and stuff like that will show you that anything you put your mind to, no matter the situation, and you are able to fully focus on manifesting something, it will happen. But it starts with self-belief. You have to be so convicted in yourself. Because if you do not believe in yourself, nobody is going to, because nobody has to. You have to believe in yourself. You have to show up. You have to fight, and you have to stand and be counted. What I am sharing on this podcast is a vulnerability, but I can share it because I'm now at the other end of it, and I'm strong enough to say, this is what I went through. I keep telling people I don't look like what I've been through. If I look like what I've been through, I wouldn't even be here. We're living in a society that treats us as black women like we are nothing. I have fought for everything. I don't know a black woman that hasn't fought to be where she is. I haven't. I haven't met a black woman that we sit down and our stories are not similar. Stories are similar because we're living in a society that treats us in a certain way. We're not paranoid, it's not by coincidence. This has been some of our existence. Then you face medical discrimination if you tap into a system that you're paying into. Imagine the little bit I've mentioned, because I'm never going to share this birthing story. The little bit I've mentioned, 5 days being induced, having an infection, staying in hospital for 10 days, literally fighting for my life. Imagine that to be told when I was in a state of incredible pain. To be told by a midwife, well, Toya, in the notes, it does say you have a lower pain threshold. Well, I'm sorry, bitch. I have fibroids. I've just been induced for 5 days, love. I've been fighting for my life and I've had an infection. Even in my sickness, I was still gaslit. And I was still going through so much from a mental perspective to be told by a midwife that it has been recorded that I have a lower pain threshold. So because it's been recorded, then I'm not taken seriously when I tell you I'm in pain. Do you know how wild that is? Better believe I received an apology. Madness. Somebody once told me, when you see somebody with mental health challenges, for example, when they're talking to themselves, they've lost their minds. Just remember there was a time when that person wasn't like that. Something caused it. There's nothing like going through the medical system or having your own mental health compromise that will make you look at mental health very clearly. This country can turn people mad, you know. This here country can turn people crazy. This is why I say to you, your mental health is your highest form of currency, the highest. Anything that compromises your mental health, cut it out. Because once you lose your mental health, you haven't got nothing. Hold on to it. Amongst everything I'm telling you, I still was interviewing for roles. Because I wanted to make sure within myself that there was something that resembled who I was. Because I was so lost. And still I got a job offer. I want to thank the ancestors for life. This is your reminder to never give up on yourself. This is your reminder that you are worth so much more than you realize. This is your reminder that as a black queen, you must wear your crown proudly. Stop looking for people to put the crown on your head. Take the crown, put it on your head, shoulders back, and walk in your purpose. This is your reminder that every day you wake up and every time you show up, you do so for yourself. This is your reminder that you can do anything you want, anything you put your mind to. We'll leave that for another episode. If you want to follow me on social media, my social media handles, I'm on TikTok, which is Toya Washington. I'm on Instagram, Toya_Washington. The Toya Talks podcast is Toya_Talks. Of course, I am on Snapchat, the birthplace and the original birthplace of the Toya Talks platform and podcast, actually. My Snapchat handle is Toya Washington. If you have a work-related dilemma or a life dilemma that you think that we will be able to discuss here, and I will, of course, keep your anonymity, please email hello@toyatalks.com. Please look out for the new masterclasses that should be coming out shortly. Pray for me. I'm still editing, but it should be with you guys shortly, and I'm very, very excited about it. There will be templates. So the two masterclasses are the maternity masterclass and the interim consulting and contract freelance masterclass coming soon. And yeah, I want to thank you for listening. I hope that this episode touches somebody, reaches somebody, resonates with somebody. Share it, please, because knowledge is power, and we need to operate from a space of sharing. We're not operating from a space of scarcity, because we have abundance, and we have to believe that we are abundantly blessed, because we are. I am abundantly blessed. You are. And let's be open enough to abundantly bless somebody else who may need to hear this episode, or be made aware that the podcast exists. If you are really in need of just a pick me up, go on my TikTok. I am trying to be consistent with it. I'm enjoying it. The feedback has been very good. Toya Washington on TikTok. Go ahead and have a watch. I'm going to leave it there and thank each and every one of you for joining me here today, for supporting me, for supporting the podcast, the platform. And I'm wishing you a great day wherever you are, whatever time you're listening to. May you be protected, guided, and loved by the ancestors. My name is Toya Washington, and you have been listening to the Toya Talks podcast.